So I'm going to move to the side here a little bit now on the modified tools into this last bracket. We have a number of tools that are very useful. Maybe not the big four, move, rotate, copy, and scale, but also extremely helpful and useful. So let's talk about how they work. Extend is our first modified tool, and extend is actually hidden. Extend is hiding underneath the trim tool, right? So we already know how to use trim. We're going to go to extend now. And when you click on extend, it will ask you to select objects. So now let's imagine we want to extend the two red lines to touch the green line. You might think, just by looking at that prompt, that you should select the objects you want to extend, but in fact it's the opposite. Just the same way that the trim tool works kind of backwards, the extend tool wants you to pick the object you want to extend to. See, I want to extend to the green line. And I'll click on the green line. Now I'll hit enter. Now it says pick the objects you want to extend. And if I click the two red lines, well, now they extend. So just like trim in AutoCAD all the way up to AutoCAD 2020, the extend tool is a backwards working tool. My red lines here, if I want to extend them to the green lines, I would pick the green lines, extend to the green lines, enter, and now extend the red lines. Okay. Now, just like with trim though, you can do something called super trim, where you have everything become an extending edge, trimming edge. You can have everything become an extending edge. Here's what I mean. I'll click on extend, and when it says pick objects, well, look at the option here in brackets. It says select all. If you just hit enter, now every line in the drawing can be extended to. Check it out. Click, 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 click. Right? All these lines are now extending, even though I didn't select any boundaries ahead of time. So, AutoCAD 2021, this is the default. This is how it works naturally. So depending on which version you're using, make sure you understand that the old extend is a backwards command, and the new extend makes a heck of a lot more sense. So when things are too short, we will extend them. Stretch. Now, stretch isn't move. Stretch is make something longer. And stretch isn't extend. We're not trying to extend to something. We're just trying to take something that's a little short and make it bigger. So check out my fancy lightsaber here, and check out my fancy lightsaber blade here. Kind of short, kind of ineffective, huh? Maybe it's good for opening cans, but that's about it. So if I go find stretch underneath the copy command, I've got to do something special when I select. I've got to make a crossing window. I've got to make this green window that goes from the right to the left when I select. Okay, and if you do that, that's select. Now hit enter. Now you're in execute. Grab a base point, pull, and see how the lightsaber's getting longer. Great. Now, I just undid it because I want to show you if you go to use scale and you pick the elements. Sorry. I'm going to go to stretch, and I'm going to pick the elements I want to stretch and hit enter. Do you see what's happening? Didn't really stretch them, did it? It's kind of moving them. If I go to stretch and I make a window around the elements that I want to pull, same thing. It's not stretching them. So the only way, again, is you've got to click on stretch, crossing window, and not just on the end, but on all the parts connected to the end that also have to stretch. Then we hit enter, then we give it a base point, and then you go, and you got to make the little noise or it doesn't work properly, okay? You got to trust me on this. So that is the way that the stretch command works. Takes an object, makes it a little bit longer, right? So if I was just to draw something with some lines, and I say this is too short, I need to stretch, make sure you get all the elements that are either getting longer or moving, right? Because it's changing the position of the short line on the end as well as the length of the long line at the top and the bottom. If you say stretch and only select these two, well, things aren't really stretching very well, are they? Yeah. So stretch, get all three, and now all three are in either a new position or are longer than they started out. Mirror. Mirror is intended to make a copy, but not just a copy, a special kind of copy. So take a look at my left hand here. My left hand, I'm going to hold out in front of me, and I'm going to hold my right hand out in front of me. And if you look at your left and right hands held out in front of you, you see that they're not really a copy one of the other. They're a copy, but they're also flipped, right? Because if you just copied your left hand to the right side, well, look, your thumb's on the wrong side, and people are going to look at you funny when you go out to restaurants, right? So, mirror will flip it for you as well as copy. So, I'll pick the hand, let's select, and I'll hit enter. And now for execute, mirror wants you to specify a mirror line. So I'm going to click at the top of my line and the bottom of my line. Click, click. And it's created that mirrored copy. Now the command's not finished though. Down the bottom it's asking you, do you want to erase the source? Do you want to erase the original? And since no is in brackets, if you just hit enter, that's the answer it'll take. It'll take no. You can mirror along anything. So if I did mirror again and got both of these and the line, could hit enter. Now in execute, you can mirror on any points. It doesn't have to be an actual line. I'm just mirroring out in space here, right along a straight line. So click, click, and it says erase the source. Well, what happens if we say yes? See how the original disappeared? So I'll move these guys back because I want you to see what happens if you tell it to erase the source. But that is the mirror command. Now, in machine design, a lot of parts are left-handed parts or right-handed parts. It's the same part, just with that flipped orientation. So rather than redrawing it from a mirror image, you could just draw it in the one orientation and then copy it to the other side with the flip involved using mirror. This happens a lot too in architecture. Please forgive my kindergarten style house drawing here, my elevation. But in architecture, a lot of construction is symmetrical. The left side of the house and the right side of the house are basically just flipped copies of each other, right? Some formal symmetry. So with AutoCAD, we can draw half the house, half of our front elevation, and go to mirror, and then select our elements, and then enter, go to phase 2. Pick any 2 points to make your mirror line and hit enter because you don't want to get rid of the original half. And now instead of drawing the entire building, I can draw half the building and then mirror the other half and save myself a lot of time, right? So this is how we create things with symmetry using the mirror command. If you wanted to get inspired, why don't you give yourself a line to work off of? Go to the spline tool and make yourself a couple of butterfly wings, huh? Beautiful. So what's the left half of the butterfly going to look like? Well, if we use mirror, we don't have to try to recreate those curves exactly. We just copy it and flip it in a mirror image. Terrible butterfly. Get rid of that.